When people ask me, what are you and your brothers like? Through all the darkness and distance and fuss, we would do anything for each other. We are the Dougherty Gang. Clock's ticking, 3 minutes. Everybody get down on the ground! Come on, Max! Move! Time!
Let's go, let's go, let's go!
There's a massive FBI manhunt for 3 siblings on the run from the law.
Our whole lives, we've been the little guy. Stepped on, stepped over. I'm suggesting we finally take control. How many?
I want this halted before it escalates.
They're kids.
They're criminals.
Look at that, Ronnie. Make a mistake.
It's just a matter of time.
Come on, let's go try and keep this. It's amazing what people are capable of when they're pushed far enough.
Well, Cory, Sean, Sam, American Outlaws, coming soon to a theater, to a film festival near you. This is a wild, a crazy, true story. I thought y'all did a heck of a job. First things first for Sean, how did you come up with the concept for this film? And for the cast, how did y'all get involved and realize that you were right for this project?
I remember the actual story, which occurred just over a decade ago. And I remember, when it hit the news cycle, and as news cycles do, they kind of spin out pretty quickly, but it definitely kind of left its imprint. And then I had the good fortune of being introduced to the GQ article that was probably the definitive sort of intellectual property out there on it, and told the story in such a cinematic way. Kathy Dobie wrote the article, and it was so beautiful. And it really started to tell the real story that you don't see in just the sound bites of it all. Like, there's so much more to the story. There's a lot of gray, not just the good guys wearing white hats and the bad guys wearing black hats. And then from there, once we were fortunate to get the rights to the article and to start to develop this thing, I reached out to the actual siblings who, were eventually captured, and they're currently serving, very lengthy terms in 3 separate federal prisons. And I met them and wrote to them and called them, and we spoke. And then eventually I went down and met them in person. So I went down to the different prisons, which was an experience in itself. And I think from there, just, again, so much more of the story came into focus, and we realized, hey, we really need to move forward with this. There's a film here.
Did you kind of see the human side, or were they still kind of wearing a mask, so to speak?
Yeah, I think pretty quickly I started to realize how truly authentic they were, in the sense that what you see is what you get. And, I think the other thing that attracted me to the story was, and this is not, again, to take some sort of side, but, they didn't hurt anybody. They could have, hence why they deserve to be in prison. Their words, also not mine. But that was also interesting, kind of compelling part of the story. And they also, and this was really in the article, and then once I spoke to them, it wasn't like they were trying to sell this, but it just became abundantly clear that they really did operate from the sort of like askew as it was, like Southern code of ethics kind of thing. And you started to realize, wow, that there's a heart there, and there are good people underneath all this that were influenced by circumstance and environment and situation. And when you start to put it all together, you realize, wow, this is complex, and life is complex. So yeah, once I met them, though, look, they're all quite charismatic, and they are very close. So the family part, which is a big theme of the story, and how unbreakable their bond is still extremely there. And I think all that stuff just really kind of helped to kind of demystify the fact that they were just these criminals in these really hardcore prisons. Prisons were pretty scary to go to, because there's some very unsavory characters, but I didn't find them to be that. They were the complete opposite, actually. Like I found myself, and you have to be careful when you get close to a story, but really, really liking them.
Of course, you decided to adapt their story to a film. You did your research for sure. You literally went straight to the source, and you have a fantastic cast. Some of them right here with us, and Cory and Sam. First for Sam and then Cory. How'd you guys get involved in the film? And when did you realize this was going to be a little bit more different compared to some of your previous projects?
I just got sent the script, and I'm meeting with Sean, and I didn't think I was going to be able to do it for a bunch of logistical reasons, visas and stuff. But I spoke to Sean and read the script. The script was really, really, really good, and Sean's awesome. And I got off of that phone call and was like, man, I hope we can make this work, because this would be like a dream come true. I'm a big fan of the neo-Western genre, and these kind of stories, like outlaw tales. It's, there's romantic elements to those kinds of backwoods American stories for me, even as a Brit. And Yeah, like me and Sean met, and then like 3 weeks later, I was in Louisiana on set, ready to roll. It was a pretty quick turnaround.
Did I meet you on a Zoom or a phone call,
Yeah,
Sean?
we had a phone call actually. And I remember it very well. Yes, and I was
Yeah.
extremely impressed with you. I was like, this is the guy. Not to say too much and let. No,
Hit
yeah,
it
you
up,
go, Cory.
connected. Sean's a real guy, he's like an actor's director, he's definitely he's all about teamwork, he's fun to work with. He's not too hard on you. He lets you do your thing and he's open for ideas, which I love about Sean. And he just has overall great spirit. So I knew the energy would be infectious on set. And it was, and that's always the makings of, a great product. You never know what's going to happen with the product. You just kind of shoot for the moon and maybe land at the stars. So that's what Sean and the whole team did. And I had a blast filming it in Shreveport. They say the armpit of the South, right? So I had a blast. And I must say, like when you film in like the South, it brings like a certain texture that no other city can bring. It's like in Louisiana or, you definitely feel that grit and that like that dirty feel that you were saying earlier, Sean. So I think that all adds like a lot of textures to like just to cinema overall and just to the whole film quality. So, I can't wait for people to see it. So see Agent Morley at his finest.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of interesting. You guys are kind of Sam. You're obviously playing one of the outlaws, and Cory. You're on the good side of things, and yeah, it just definitely makes for an interesting dynamic. When you guys were taking on these respective characters, were they different from how they ended up on screen compared to when you were first kind of doing your script analysis and everything else like inside your head, or did it not really change all that much?
Yeah, no, I had a real like crisis the day before filming because Sean had described Ryan to me in a particular way, and Ryan appeared in the script to be a particular way. And then I actually got to speak to Ryan on the phone a couple of times, but right before we started filming, and what Ryan was telling me about himself was in pretty direct conflict from how Ryan was in the script. And I remember me and Sean were walking through a parking lot, and I'm like, Sean, I don't know who this guy is. And we start filming in like 12 hours. What am I going to do? And Sean said people's perceptions of themselves are sometimes quite different than other people's perceptions. And Emery and India, who play Dylan and Lee Grace, they both spoke to the real Dylan and Lee Grace, and those guys, they had stories about Ryan. So it was interesting hearing Ryan's siblings' perspective on what Ryan was like. So luckily, I got on set with a pretty firm idea of who the guy was or how I wanted to play him.
I haven't seen the film yet. I just saw a trailer and some bits and pieces. But yeah, I felt comfortable in the character when I was filming him. I try to always ground my characters and keep them real and keep them honest and just tell the truth. That's all I try to do all the time, and just keep it simplified acting, and that's just like my whole basis of how I break down characters and try to pull some real Cory out of it as well, and just put it all in a pot and stir it up and just see what we come out with. But and then what's most important, I just try to have fun and just connect, always connect. So yeah, it was great.
Was it tough for you as a director with the whole casting process and just kind of getting everybody in the same room at the same time, or did you kind of gradually, like the rest of the industry, get used to it?
Great question. Actually, we were more impacted after shooting. We actually shot the film right and finished the film right before the world turned upside down. So we were on a roll here and ready to roll right into our post-production process, which we'd started, and then literally offices were closing, people were starting to shut down. We still, as a culture, we still hadn't gotten quite used to the remote working part of it. So everything just started to kind of grind to a halt and all that. So the film kind of marinated for a bit, is the word I'll use, until we were able to pick it back up, which was really a great thing. It's funny because at the time I was like a little disappointed because we were like rolling and then we had to kind of stop for a beat, but it gave some real perspective. And really, I think, in my mind, in hindsight, kind of helped a lot of the themes come out, and a lot of the themes of the film also weirdly, strangely became even more relevant now than they were if it had come out, say, a year or two ago or a couple of years ago. So in that sense, I think it just kind of all happened like it was supposed to.
And it certainly seemed like, especially the main characters, there's a lot of undiagnosed trauma, right? And the last 3 years, it's been tough for people and everything. Obviously, the deaths, the illnesses, everything else, but also just like the mental health crisis that's gone in this country. Not to make excuses for the Outlaws or anything, but that is a very real problem. So, was that one of the things that you felt that was kind of like the subplots that was kind of heightened post pandemic?
Yeah, and I think even more so, not to politicize anything at all. Again, I think the point of the film, what we all attempted to do was just let's pose some questions and you kind of come away and make up your own mind in a way. There wasn't like some big agenda, but what I found really fascinating was, and I can speak to this because I grew up in these kind of areas in the South and in the Ozarks in particular, and these kids had their own links to that. So a lot of their sensibilities came from their grandparents coming from those areas and stuff. Is that there's a huge swath of the population that feels unlistened to, unrecognized, marginalized even, and these kids were, in a sense, you could say, a product of that. Because of circumstances and environment and situation, they found themselves in a very challenging situation, which they decided, and obviously in hindsight they shouldn't have done this, but to go on the run to avoid their younger brother getting in a lot of trouble. And in doing so, they spun wildly out of control. But again, one could make the argument that they're a byproduct of what a lot of people are experiencing these days, that the system isn't for them, that the world itself has kind of turned its back on them. So, what happens when that happens is you lay down and give up, or you fight. And it may not be the right thing, but it's what people do.
Well said. And Sam, for you, in terms of you taking on this complex, very, very complicated character and everything, it's not so black and white, it's a lot of shades of gray. Was it tough to step in and out of the character? Because things do get a little intense, or were you able to kind of separate the work from your real life when you were filming this?
It's a bit of both, really. I'm not like an actor that gets super, super lost in the characters I'm playing, because I don't think my brain would handle it well. But conversely, I was so worried about being, everybody knew I was English, but I was so worried about being people hearing my American accent and not buying it that I just stayed in accent for the entire shoot, which is incredibly pretentious. But it was just my way of knowing that the more I do it, the better it's going to be when the cameras are rolling, So, but there was a point near the end of the shoot where I remember sitting in my hotel room and I forgot how I sounded, how I really sounded, because I've been doing this accent for however many weeks. And I started trying to talk in an English accent, and it sounded like I was putting on an accent. It sounded like I was trying to be British. It was ridiculous, So in that sense, I did. I got a little bit lost in it, but only with the accent.
I must say, Sam was so good when I pulled up to the premiere, to the festival last night, and he started speaking. I was like, who is this guy? I didn't know that, So he was very convincing and committed to, speaking in an American accent. So.
And Cory and Sam, you guys have had awesome acting careers up to this point. And this is kind of more of an inside baseball question, inside acting. I'm just curious, as guys who have in their careers also been series regular for TV series, is there a different skill set that you have to bring to a feature film, or do you feel like it kind of is transferable back and forth?
You brought up baseball. I play a baseball coach, on this show. That's crazy you said that. But if I can take this one, I can say I come from more feature world. I just recently, the last maybe 4 or 5 years, hopped over into television. It was all feature. I'm I'm just going to do movie after movie after movie. But what I have noticed is on television, it's more of they have a certain amount of minutes. You got scripty over there every time they walk up to you behind the monitor. They're telling you got to be very, on point with dialogue that's written, because the writer is there as well. Whereas feature, you can kind of, make it your own a little more. You don't have to always be word for word. And, you get great directors like Sean who gives you that freedom. So I can't say that, it's a little different. And I do enjoy both, but features, you do get a little more freedom, which I really, really enjoy the feature film, because I'm the master ad-libber, and some of the stuff really works and some don't, but the stuff that works, it's classic material, man. So, but no, that's my take on it.
Yeah, well, Cory is prolific. For me, it's less about whether it's a film or TV, and more like if I can gauge what the tone or like the like visual language of a certain project is. Like with American Outlaws, it felt really like indie, for lack of a better word. So like I try and imagine how it's going to look on camera and then act in a way that I hope complements that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And hey, it helps having an awesome director like Sean, right? Who
Look, you guys said this just like we rehearsed before we started. That was awesome. No, listen, all joking aside, I feel very blessed. I was really able to work with some really talented people and thereby take credit for all their good work. You know, no, I'm kidding.
For sure. And you guys have been so gracious with your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you all about American Outlaws. Before I let you go, let you out of here on a high note. Why should people watch American Outlaws? And what do you want viewers to take away from the film? Sean, we can start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a story. I mean, these true stories, and it is the truth is stranger than fiction. I think this story in particular, in its complexity, it's also there in its simplicity. And that, look, it's about family, you know, and it's about, you know, how family can connect in some way. And I think people can really relate to that. They can make you kind of think about the bigger picture of it all when we kind of hold up that mirror to ourselves. So I think hopefully that's what we attempted to do, and we were, you know, hopefully successful in doing that, and people kind of have an interesting experience to go on that journey with these kids.
I just feel like it's a great story. It's entertaining. Like Sean said, it's a film about family, and you've got all the like, you know, exciting stuff with the car chases and the shootouts. But you know, at its heart, it's a film about family, and you know, I think what's interesting about it is there's this theme throughout the film of like, who are the good guys? And it's like, well, it depends who's telling the story. And I hope the audience will like find that engaging, because it's not cut and dry, black or white, you know?
Yeah. I say it's a great American drama, you know, crime story, but the siblings do love each other, and it's deep rooted in love. You know, they have each other's back through thick and thin. And, you know, whether it's good or bad, they're together, and it shows a united front here, you know. And yeah, that's my take on it as well. So go see American Outlaws, you know.
Definitely go see American Outlaws. And Sean, before we let you go, where can we find American Outlaws online, and where can we find it next?
Well, actually, so we're doing the festival thing right now, and we are very fortunate that we're currently engaging with a number of different distributors, and we're about to land a partnership with one, and then we'll know all. But we're still in that kind of virginal phase, but we're getting really close.